It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast, available on iHeartRadio every morning and also on Spotify and Apple and wherever you get your podcasts from. It is a Tuesday morning, the 29th day for November, just one more day after today, and we are into December for 2022. Now, the Australian Housing and Urban Research Institute had some research out yesterday, and contrary to some predictions, tenancy law reform in both New South Wales and Victoria, they say, have had very little impact on landlords' decisions to invest in or stop investing in private rental housing. So that's a bit of good news, and the analysis found no evidence that the New South Wales reform affected the number of properties entering the private rental sector, while fewer properties than expected exited the sector. And it found in the Victorian review that slightly fewer properties entered the sector after the review commenced. However, there was no effect on number of properties exiting the private rental sector. So to summarise, that is good news because most investors said the tenancy law was an important consideration when they invested, but when it came to selling, it was really a major factor. So reform is not stopping neither investor confidence or continued investment. Coming up in just a moment, we are talking property with Rachel and Damien.
We talk with leading property commentators with analysis, predictions, forecasts, and what's trending every morning from 6:30.
And if you're celebrating your birthday for today, for November the 29th, happy birthday. You are sharing it with Don Cheadle, the American actor. He is turning 58 today. Chadwick Boseman, he would have been celebrating his birthday today, but unfortunately died a couple of years ago. And also George Harrison. Has it been that long since he passed away? Way back in 2001. And if you're old enough, you might remember this. Back in 1972, Atari releases Pong, a video game similar to tennis where the goal is to use a paddle to hit a ball. And you'd find them in arcades, and around 35,000 Pong consoles were sold around the world. So there's a bit of useless information you probably didn't need to know about this morning.
We are just as addicted to property as you are. Every weekday morning from 6:30. It's the Main Centre Forecast with PRD, selling smarter every day.
All right, let's have a look at your weather around the country. We go on this Tuesday morning, and first to Sydney, and expecting blue skies with sunshine with 24 degrees. Partly cloudy, but it should be mainly dry in Melbourne with 19. Brisbane expecting a shower or two and a possible storm, expecting 31 is your forecast top. And the place to be today, if you want a hot temperature, is Perth, expecting sunshine and 37 degrees.
It's your weekday real estate breakfast with news, interviews and predictions every morning on the Real Estate Podcast.
Well, yesterday we talked about the property prices falling from their peak in March. The sharpest declines have been seen in Sydney and Melbourne, of course, and PropTrack has this new data out talking about the falls in the market, but the falls, as we mentioned, are well below the massive gains recorded since the start of the pandemic. And there's a little bit of good news here for Melbourne with regard to the PropTrack data. So let's go to Rachel Waters from Woodards Real Estate. And a very good morning to you, Rachel. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast.
Good morning. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me today.
Now, you're in the inner city suburb of Blackburn, which has seen plenty of activity over the last couple of years, of course. Its median unit price has leapt 53% to hit $868,000. It's a pretty decent nudge there, Rachel. What's going on?
Yeah, it's a fantastic result for Blackburn, and we're seeing that Blackburn is a suburb that has a lot of leafy, beautiful walking tracks and parklands that people can make use of. And I think the area's become really popular for people, in particular for units, because if you're on a budget but you still want that open space, well, here's a great opportunity for you. So yeah, it's a lovely, lovely suburb.
And what's been happening in the space of the older downsizers, because there's a bit of activity there?
Absolutely. So what we've found is over the last couple of years, some downsizers have been able to achieve some really great results for their family homes. Since COVID, their decision-making around their real estate has changed as well. So a lot of our downsizers have found that they don't want to necessarily spend their time cleaning a huge house, maintaining a huge garden, and it's time now to reset and find the right unit. And often, again, it's one of those things that being close to amenity is so important for that demographic. And Blackburn offers all of that. So again, it's really stands to reason why we've seen some really great results in the unit area around Blackburn.
Yes, and you've been seeing the first home buyers also move into Blackburn, and young families, they're still transacting, are they, with purchases?
We are certainly finding that the first home buyers are still active. And, you know, with the rate rises that we've experienced, obviously they do have less to spend, but they haven't halted their search. They're still hunting around for the right one that will be within their budget. Blackburn and surrounding suburbs within Whitehorse that we work in, there's certainly options for them. And especially with the prices starting to come down a little bit, they're still on the hunt and looking for the right property.
Okay, and what's been happening in the apartment space with people still very keen to work from home? That is, of course, if there is the availability of the office space.
Well, that's exactly right, actually, because what we've found is that with apartments, they've actually been quite challenging to sell unless they have a space for working from home. And obviously that's become more and more important for everybody across the board who is working. And also, even if they're not working from home necessarily, they do want to make sure they have enough living space to enjoy where they stay. So yeah, apartments have come up, but we also finding that developers in particular are starting to think about how they do design their apartments to make them a bit more spacious and allow for that space for working from home as well.
I don't know if you've experienced this or not, but the effect of the rate rise, there's a number of comments about that people after buying properties now have less time to work on their properties. And I suspect because they're probably in some cases having to pick up a second job just to cover the cost of the mortgage. Is that a thing that you've experienced?
Look, I've found with a lot of our clients around Blackburn, they're very conservative and they will make sure that they buy within their means. They certainly wanting to not necessarily work on their house, but I think that's really due to them wanting to value their time with their families. So they want to make sure that they're not spending their time with a hammer and nail on the weekend, but going to the parkland and spending time with the kids. And I think that that's something that's become more and more important for people. The other thing is the rising cost of actually having to do a renovation too has put some concern in people's minds. The possibility that they could allow for a particular budget and it could blow out to a larger amount by the time they're doing the renovation has also been a concern for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. And how busy are you, Rachel, between now and Christmas time?
That's a good question. I start at 9 a.m. this morning with my open for inspections and finish quite late. So I'm very busy at the moment, but we are seeing that there are less listings on the market now than there have been over the last few months. So I think that it will start to slow down from here on in for 2022.
Yeah, get that year right, 2022.
Yeah, that's right.
23 is coming up.
I nearly said 3.
Yeah, 23 is going to be here before we know it. That is for sure. Well, you have yourself a fantastic time between now and Christmas, and good luck in your area.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on today.
It's your real estate podcast for breakfast.
And in the Redcliff region, northeast of Brisbane, there is this suburb called Woody Point, which has seen plenty of demand for. And if we have a look at that median unit price, it is now sitting at $611,000, which is a jump by 53% since the very start of COVID. So let's welcome in Damien Misso from the Ray White Group there. And a very good morning to you, Damien. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast.
Good morning, Craig. Thanks so much for having me here.
Well, you're in a really nice spot there, eh? Tell us a little bit about this spot. Haven't heard of it before. Certainly no Redcliff.
Well, it's the southernmost part of the peninsula, the Redcliff Peninsula. We're about 35 minutes from Brisbane City, 25 minutes from the International Airport, and a bit over an hour to the Golden Sunshine Coasts.
Yeah, so very close to Brisbane, yet far enough away, I think, to offer that relaxed, slower, smell the ocean and relaxed vibe.
Certainly, Craig, it's a very different pace here. We're an area that sort of, I suppose, specialises for your breakfast and your lunch and slows down of an evening. So it is quiet for those people who want to relax of an evening.
So let's just come back to the units, because there's some really great growth there with 611,000. It probably, like a lot of places, your area probably didn't grow much, and then suddenly, through the pandemic, just went absolutely mental.
That's correct, Craig. Also, I suppose one thing that contributed is the housing prices increased significantly, and units became a really good alternative for people who were priced out of the housing market. But we haven't seen our unit market perform as it has in the last 2 years.
I understand that there's a little bit of high-rise activity, and not only that, but a little bit of controversy. So what's happening with the controversy, perhaps?
Yeah, so the area is changing and going through a transformation, I suppose. And part of that transformation has been a site where the Palace Hotel used to be on the corner of Woodcliff Crescent and Lilla Street. Now, that's been sold, I think, about 8 years ago, and it is a 21-metre height zoning. A little while ago, council approved a 45-metre high building, which did get a few of the locals offside. Not sure when that is going to be starting, but it's certainly got the people talking.
What do you think is likely to happen in the next phase of the market where you are, and possibly, Christmas is just so close now, but maybe towards the start of next year, 2023?
A crystal ball opportunity is always interesting because we don't know what's going to happen. There's so many things that influence our market, but I think we could probably assume that there's going to be more interest rate rises, which is going to put some pressure on people's borrowing capacity. So my advice to anybody who's looking to do anything in real estate is to be really prepared. Talk to your broker, make sure you're up to date with your expenses and you understand what significant interest rate rises might mean to your family, because I think as the market continues to change, those people who have done that preparation up front will be the ones who'll be able to benefit the most.
All right, we'll leave it there, Damien. You have yourself a fantastic day at Woody Point. Thank you so much for telling us a little bit about your area. Good luck with the run-up to Christmas, and I guess have a well-deserved break.
Thank you so much, Craig, and likewise to you and your family.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.